Welcome to episode 4 of the Truth Sideline Podcast. I'm your host, Pete Janney, joined by my co host, Mike Jarvis. Episode 4 was another blast. We had on Dennis Kelly, a local hoops figure here in Connecticut, played college ball at Siena, has really invested a lot of his time and energy into coaching. He runs Dribble Drive Basketball out of Shelton, Connecticut, and has done a great job with his training sessions and clinics and really growing the game for a lot of kids here in Connecticut. So we're indebted to Dennis for coming on and sharing his wisdom. This was another really special episode with a really great hoops figure that we really wanted to shed some light on.
Yeah, that it was awesome. Just getting to, I've known of Dennis, never really had a chance to connect personally with him and know his sons pretty well. But he's like done a lot for the game. He's been up and down, like Brooklyn, 5 star. Obviously, does a great job here with grassroots in Connecticut, and he's had a real big time a lot of input into the game, and has a lot of guys that he's mentored and coached, and he's done a great job of getting them back involved. So I really have a lot of respect for what he's done, and thank him again for coming on.
And Mike and Dennis have connections for days that we probably could have talked for hours going on about who they know and just catching up on all of that. So really, it was a perfect match for our podcast having Dennis on. We'll get into that in a little bit. Want to take some time right now to give my athlete spotlight here for episode 4. Really, really interested and excited to see the development of a player who has broken through this year early in the NBA season. Ryan Rollins on the Milwaukee Bucks has been a complete revelation. 6'3" guard, has a 6'9" wingspan, lockdown defender. Mike, he's been kind of the replacement player there in Milwaukee for Doc Rivers now that they've moved on for Damian Lillard, and see a lot of Drew Holiday in his game, the way that he's able to impact the floor defensively. And this is a guy on catch and shoot threes that's shooting 40%. So he's been completely unbelievable. And I don't think anybody saw this coming because he was a second round pick in 2022 coming out of Toledo of the MAC conference. And really, he had a great sophomore season, entered the draft. He played on two teams. He was with the Warriors first, and then he was with the Wizards, and was never really able to catch on, and has found a home now for himself in Milwaukee. And he's playing second fiddle to Giannis, and Giannis needs all the help that he can get. So he's been lighting it up, Mike. We saw him score. I believe he had a career high 32 points in a game earlier this season against the Golden State Warriors, which Draymond Green on his podcast talked about how impressed he was with his former teammate Ryan Rollins and his mental composure and his ability to stay focused during the course of a game. At one point during that game, there was a hard foul on Steph, and Draymond took exception to it, and he was trying to get after Rollins, and he just couldn't throw him off his game. He also had 8 assists in that game and 1 turnover. So I'm loving what he's doing. And Mike, for the NBA today, with all the salaries, he's on a 3-year, $12 million contract. So he's a player to watch out for, and he's a complete bargain for this Bucks team.
Yeah, and
Have you
that's
seen
what
him play?
I have, and the thing that it shows is that if you have talent and you stick with it long enough, somebody's going to find you, and you're going to find the right situation. And I am happy for guys like Ryan Rollins who have found a home and now have a chance to showcase what they really can do. And in 2 or 3 years, he'll be $100 million guy. Signing a huge contract probably after this year. So kudos to Ryan Rollins, and I think guys like that are kind of what this podcast is all about. It's about finding in a place, a home, sticking with it, not jumping around. Like he came from Toledo, and then bounced around in the NBA for a little bit, and now he's playing with you know arguably one of the top 5 or 6 players in the game now, and that doesn't hurt. But he's given an opportunity and took full advantage of it. So
And you see the quotes after every game, whether it's from Giannis or it's from Cole Anthony, one of his other teammates, just how impressed they are. I think Cole Anthony said, "Yeah, like this guy's a dog. Like he could really play." So really happy to see what he's doing. And it's only November 7th. Long road ahead in the NBA. A lot of games in the NBA too. This is not college, so we'll see how he could stick with it over the course of a long season and endure the adversity that's inevitable for every athlete. But this guy's really come onto the scene, so we're really happy for Ron. Switching gears, going back to Dennis Kelly for a second, our guest here on episode 4. It's a remarkable story. It's somebody that had, a playing career, had a career as a Division I ref. He's running Dribble Drive Basketball, and he has this collection of coaches that come in. They run these sessions. They have teams. It's been something that I know means so much to him and his family. And just talking about his two sons, Rich and John, and what they've been able to achieve in their careers as well. They were never the most athletic guys, but they were able to reach Division I basketball. Going up, Rich, for instance, was a great player at Quinnipiac, and he was able to crack the high major level at Boston College, and also played at UMass too. It was coached by Matt McCall, who was our great guest on episode 3. So it's super cool. It's one of those, we talk about how you don't have to follow the footsteps of your dad, but like if you want to have that, take that road like you did, Mike, and Dennis's boys did, and look how far it got them. It could change your life, and I think probably in your case, it changed your life too for choosing basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And like, Rich is at UConn now. He's a national champion. And sky's the limit. So he's there as a grad assistant. He took advantage of, he's getting what, two masters did right now. He's getting a second master's degree.
He's
So
getting
then he
he's
has a
getting
chance
more
to.
masters than he may need a third hand to count the amount of masters he's getting if he keeps going this way.
Yeah. So yeah, he's taking full advantage of what the game can do for you, as well on the academic side. So, because a lot of that I think is forgotten, with the incoming of NIL and some of the other things going on, rev share. So nobody talks about the degrees and the opportunities that it creates, as well. So that's great to see, and usually you don't hear about it. So I'm glad that we can at least spotlight that and show the good things that involve with the collegiate athletics on the academic side as well.
Yeah, and as a coach and a referee, Dennis approaches the game from so many different angles. So it's really interesting to get his perspective on how he deals with annoying coaches, annoying players, annoying parents as a referee. So I really appreciated that. And the key word that he used was etiquette, right? How big etiquette is now and how that's such a lost thing in today's society, especially within youth sports. So this was a great episode. We look forward to sharing this, and we're gonna dive into it right now with Dennis Kelly. We are joined by Dennis Kelly, former Division I player at Siena College and a former Division I referee as well. Dennis is the founder of Dribble Drive Basketball here in the state of Connecticut. It's a pleasure to have you on today, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and thank you very much, Pete, for having me.
Yeah, no, this is a great episode. Obviously, what you do for the youth. I want to get your thoughts on Dribble Drive. Just what have you been up to, and talk a little bit about the origins of that and getting that started up here in Connecticut, specifically the Derby Shelton area.
Of course, yeah. So, Dribble Drive Basketball is primarily a player development camp and team-oriented travel AAU service. And it started I would say, about 12 to 13 years ago when I retired as a referee. I was a college ref for about 20 years. 10 of those years I was a Division I ref. And it was about the time when my sons, Rich and John, and even my youngest child, Elizabeth, were interested in the game of basketball. And I started Dribble Drive just basically as a volunteer service to the area, and it just grew into a business over a period of time. And now it's grown to, I probably have maybe roughly about 1,500 kids in the program.
Oh,
I
wow.
run tournaments, leagues, player development sessions in and around the Derby area and Shelton, which is where we live, and throughout the Fairfield County and New Haven County areas.
Can you just talk about the staff, like the people you've been able to put together? You know, your two sons, your two boys played Division I hoops. Rich Kelly and John Kelly, I know they've been a part of it, but just talk about everybody that's a part of Dribble Drive that makes this possible.
Thank you. It really happens organically where, the kids that I've worked with and gotten to know, not just the children, but the families, right? The moms, the dads. And it's kind of a, more or less a holistic approach where, basketball for most of the kids when they're in grade school, middle school, it's really a training ground for character building. A lot of kids, continue as recreational players. Most continue on as recreational players. So you have them for a period of time. And some of the kids pop out and they become high school varsity. And some even go on to college, Division III, II, or I. And some even become professional players. And those players who are now coaching for me, in many cases, were players that I started with in maybe the third, fourth, or fifth grade. So they've come back to coach. You mentioned my two sons, Rich and John. Rich, as I know you're aware, helps out as a grad assistant for Danny Hurley at UConn. He's in his third year, and he's working on his second master's degree.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And and then my son, John, Richie played at Quinnipiac, Boston College, and UMass. And then John started at Fairfield, and he landed at UMass with Rich. They played together for 1 year, which as a dad was, a thrill. And a lot of the coaches that I have, I've got several now actually working for me. Kyle Casey. Kyle played at Harvard University.
Yeah.
Also played in the G League. And a little bit of a taste in the NBA. And Mike, do you happen to know Kyle?
Yeah, actually, I coached against him when I was at Florida Atlantic. He was at Harvard. He's a heck of a player. He's probably their best team that they had there at Harvard over those couple of years. They were in the NCAA's, and I think they won a game actually too in the tournament.
There you go.
He's a good player. Tough matchup.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and then another. I'm just thinking right off the top of my head, the current coaches that I have. I've got a gentleman named Sean Conway. Sean, coincidentally, Mike, lives in Fairfield.
Yeah, I know Sean.
Yeah,
St. John's, baby.
Yeah, St. John's grad. I played for Coach Patino. I've got on my staff Matt Belanc.
Yep.
Who played at Quinnipiac and was one of their best players.
Great player.
MVP of the MAC. I had for a period of time, she just got a job in real estate, Tierney Lawler. Tierney played at UConn. She's a 3-time national champion.
Okay.
With Gino Auriemma. She played there for 4 years. And then I have a number of other players that help me coach. I've got Jackson Mashanik, who played at Ithaca and is currently going to Australia in January to play professionally. So it's a combination of men and women, many of which I have personal relationships with, and they're really it's a quality group of people. And again, it's mostly a holistic approach. We're looking at the whole child as academically, family balance, social balance, but also just high performance as a basketball player and confidence building, et cetera. So we have a good chemistry with the families, the kids, and a lot of them come back as coaches.
Yeah, no, that's awesome because it's funny because the program that I started off. We had my dad on last week. It sounds very similar. So he would have like his high school guys would coach basically the young kids. It was more of a feeder system for Cambridge.
I understand.
Yeah, so it was like, it was called Shoot Straight, and we had like Patrick Ewing was a coach for me 1 year. Like guys, so basically as you grew up, you idolize like the high school guys, and those were like your heroes. So it was kind of cool. But you have like an unbelievable collection of Harvard grad,
Yeah,
UMass grad, like some big time people just in the world itself, and they happen to be able to really be able to play basketball as well. And I'm sure that the parents now, I'm sure they're picking their brains on a lot of different things beside
yeah,
basketballs. Maybe how they can help get their kids recruited, and I'm sure it
absolutely.
turns into a whole big thing.
Yeah, exactly. I should mention as well. This is going back about 2 months ago. I accepted the head coaching job at the Hopkins School.
Okay,
So I have the Dribble
very
Drive
cool.
business. I'm now helping out as the varsity head coach of the boys team at the Hopkins School, which, as you're very likely to be aware, they play in the NEPSAC.
Yes.
We're a Class B school, which is non-boarding school, but Hopkins is an outstanding institution, academic institution, maybe not unlike Cambridge as well, high academic, and they're turning the corner on sports, not
Yeah.
just basketball, but other sports as
No,
well.
it's funny because I coached at Greens Farms Academy for a couple of years in between
Sure.
like when I first moved up here from Florida after I finished, college coaching, and then figured out what I wanted to do with my life before I got into administration and college athletics. But I coached over there and did admissions, so it's a
Very
good
good.
league, and it's funny because a lot of kids from that league really don't. You end up with a lot of really good D3 players, not many D1 kids, but it's a
Mhm.
it's a good basketball league. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis, how do you make time for all these different things? Like, what does a typical day look like for Dennis Kelly?
Well, I just described this to my daughter, Lizzie. I was speaking with her about an hour ago as well. I require my children to call me every day. I have to hear their voice. So
That's
she's
beautiful. I
a
love that.
she's a senior at St. Joe's University down in Philly, and she gave me a call. As I mentioned about an hour ago, and she asked me how my day went. What did I do? And I described it. So I was up at about 7:30 at my laptop at about 8:30, and I was on calls, which are I've got a team of about 5 or 6 people with Dribble Drive, where we were planning my schedule because we have I'm running not just the Dribble Drive business, but I'm the director of basketball for the Diocese of Bridgeport. We have about 800 or 900 kids in the program, third grade up to eighth grade. I'm also I mentioned the Hopkins coach. What else? And then I'm running a league for St. Lawrence Parish, third and fourth grade league. So, and I've got about 4 or 5 gymnasiums and about 12 coaches. And the schedule is like a puzzle, and it's like a kaleidoscope. One piece moves. So I'm on calls until about and working on all the scheduling through about 3 o'clock. And then from 4 until about 8 tonight, I was in a gym with a bunch of kids.
Nice.
Coach.
You two gentlemen are very familiar with what it takes to get to the high Division 1 level. I mean, you played Division 1 basketball, Dennis, at Siena. Your two boys played Division 1 basketball. Rich obviously made it to the high major level playing at Boston College. Just what was it like raising both of them and driving them to be as great as they were to reach that level of Division 1?
Yeah, maybe it might be a little bit similar to Mike, where you have an in-house mentor, someone who knows the business, knows the subject matter, understands motivational aspects of the game, character building, etc. So, my experience as a child, my dad played basketball, but he would just go to the games. He didn't coach me, but he gave me, every ounce of support. And I had a brother, Tom, who just handed me a baseball and a glove and a basketball.
Yeah.
And, I just ran with it. And I happen to have, really good coaches around me in the neighborhood I grew up in Brooklyn. And I just provided those types of, it was a habit for me. It's like breathing. I'm just around basketball. I've been around basketball my entire life. So it was, hard pressed for me to find a day where I didn't take a shot or
Yeah.
dribble a ball,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was a habit. And my kids, that was just, I'd have conversations with very close friends of mine who are in the NBA or in college basketball. And I'd say, hey, Rich, John, Lizzie, I've got, so-and-so on the call. I don't want to drop any names here, but, a good friend of mine. And, they get on the call and they go, hey, Rich, hey, John, how'd Lizzie? Did you get your 50 or 100 shots up today? And they,
No pressure.
that would be like their first question. Hey, how you doing? Did you get your shots up today? So it was like a habit, and fortunately, you asked me a short question. I'm giving you like an unabridged answer, but like your dad, quite possibly, Mike, I know the landscape.
Yep.
I know the who, the what, the when, the where. So I know how to get out in front and do all the blocking and tackling for the kids.
Yep.
Who to go to, where are the gyms. I can't tell you how many times I was fighting traffic from Shelton, to Jersey City to play for a Sport U team IZOD. And, there's 4 guys on the team at 14 years old that eventually are going to get drafted into the NBA that my son John played on, and I'm driving over the bridge. Take me 3 hours to get there, 3 hours to get home to go to a practice.
Yeah.
So it's an undying commitment, but it was easy in a way because I could clear the path for them because I knew where to go and who to talk to, and I knew all the right camps. And so, and plus as a referee, that added to the insight to the game. And I think you might be aware, Pete, definitely, Mike, maybe, that my high school coach through my junior year was Pete Gillen.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So Pete,
Yep.
I came from a blue collar background. My dad was a bartender. My 2 brothers became cops. My other brother, rest in peace. We lost him 9/11. He was a New York City fireman. He's the one that handed me the glove and the ball. But I was going to be a cop, a fireman, a construction worker. And Pete Gillen's like, you're going to 5-star. And I'm like, okay. What's that? And we can't afford it, by the way. So I'm not going to 5-star. But I went to 5-star, and I knew a lot of the guys like Tom Konchowski. I've known him since I was in grade school. Because being in Brooklyn, I went to Jack Curran's camp when I was in grade school and high school. So I knew Tom, and it gave me a 3+. I had a good senior year. I was all city, and I had a couple of really good games. And the next thing you know, I'm taking a bus ride up to Albany, New York. I used to pronounce it Albany.
Yeah.
Like AL, right? I didn't even know how to pronounce the name of the city. So, basketball and Pete Gillen in particular. And in my senior year, I had a guy named Bill Burke, who eventually was in my wedding party. And Billy is, coached at BU with Pitino and was a head coach at Loyola, personal friends with Rick Pitino. And, so I was always in the mix, of basketball people. So that my kids picked up on that. And fortunately, they, followed along. I'll just end the answer to that question with my daughter, actually, Lizzie. She was, a little more kinesthetically, talented. She got on a bike. The first time she got on a bike, she rode it. Like, didn't have to jump rope, got a rope and jumped it, jump rope. And she played basketball, and I was coaching her through the 8th grade, and she was actually pretty good. And I went to put her in a game once. She's on the bench, and I was like, Lizzie, Mary just got her 3rd foul, and you got to go in. And she's like, I can't. And I'm like, Lizzie, go in for her. She just got her, whatever it was, 2nd, 3rd foul. I can't. I said, why? And she said, I just had my nails done. So that was it. So she wound up, picking up volleyball in high school and never played basketball again. So with children, I think, Pete, this might be play into, how to approach the kids. And, you have to follow them at a certain point. They'll let you know what they have passion for. And you can't force them at a certain point into doing things that they're not motivated to do. You have to, be egoless. It's about them. It's not you, right? So you have to let them find their own path. So that's what happened with Elizabeth. And she still got her nails done, but she played volleyball. And then the boys continued on with hoop. So
of course.
Yeah. Now, did you guys play any other sports, like growing up in, the Little League or?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like, the dad, I played baseball and basketball in high school, all the way to varsity. My boys played baseball and baseball through the 8th grade. And they continued on with basketball.
Yeah. No, and I think that's probably a last thing now. A lot of kids are playing probably from third grade on one sport, which I think is, we could go over that a million times, but most
Sure.
kids aren't playing a couple of sports because the programs, the way they're set up now, is you almost can't, which
Yeah.
is it's a shame. Like the schedules you're getting locked into one thing. So
Yeah. My advice to parents, and I say this just with some humility, having raised three kids, and to your point, Mike, the culture right now is the specialization. But my advice to the parents is, especially at the youth level, it's a buffet. Let them have a
yes,
little bit of this, a little bit of that, season to season,
Yep.
rotate through. And, not everyone is going to be an elite athlete. I think it's a healthy approach. A lot of the kinesthetics
Yep.
cross over, from soccer or lacrosse to basketball,
yeah,
the spacing, the timing. So a lot of that stuff crosses over. If they show a passion at some point and they're committed to becoming, a varsity level player, then you look at the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, and, you have to see if
Yeah.
it throws the family out of balance, and, you've got 2 or 3 kids, you got to be here and there. You can't go over your skis too much.
yeah,
But, at the young level, at the youth level, my advice to them is just, it's a buffet. Give them a little piece of everything.
yeah,
Little
yeah.
taste.
So I want to ask you. You send Rich
Yeah,
to Montverde for his sophomore year
yeah,
of high school. He's teammates with D'Angelo Russell, Ben Simmons. There's a connection there between you're related to Kevin Boyle.
yeah.
Sending him down there, Kevin's not, obviously since moved on to Spire in Ohio, but what was that like, getting him that type of exposure, Rich, and just the type of player he became as a result of that experience playing
Yeah.
on the best team in the country?
Yeah. When Kevin was at St. Pat's, I walked he and his wife down the aisle. He's married to my niece, and
Okay.
so that's the relationship. My niece is her name is Kelly Derbyshire, married Kevin Boyle, and so when he was at St. Pat's, the Montverde headmaster Casey Kesselring sent him a blind email out of the blue and solicited him as the head coach at Montverde. And Kevin really didn't know anything about Montverde. And so I did a little bit of the homework for him, and I was like, these guys are really, this is legit. And so he accepted the job, and he asked me if I would go down there with him. And I had spoken to Casey about possibly being the athletic director and helping Kevin. At the time, I just had to be near an airport. I was working with IBM, and I was flying all over the place, and I just needed to be near an airport. And there was a lot of reasons why we strongly considered it, not the least of which is, the school is an outstanding school academically.
Yeah.
And I wasn't counting on my kids getting a scholarship to play basketball. There's a program down there called the Bright Futures Program, where if the children who've been residents of that state for more than 2 years score high on a test, they go to any college in the state for free.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this could work. I get, twice the house, half the price. It's 80 degrees every day, blah, blah, blah. But we were considering the move, and before we decided to do everything and just move down there, we sent Richie down there ahead of us. So thinking, let's get him down there and then figure out the real estate and the finances. And his experience there playing with and against, there were 13 guys in that roster. Richie was like, let's call it 12. There were 12 players on that roster, and Richie was like the 13th guy, But all 13 guys wound up getting Division I scholarships. And, he was, and they were the number one team in the country. And he was going up against D'Angelo every day. Yeah. So Richie's highlight of his career there, the 1 year he spent, was he stripped D'Angelo once. And he's like, Dad, it's like a milestone of my life. Yeah. So
you watched some of that guy's highlights in college at Ohio State.
No, it was
again,
ridiculous.
he's been a good NBA player. Obviously there's sky high expectations, and not everybody can live up to it. But like, that guy could pass the ball, man. I can't even imagine guarding him in practice.
Yeah, right. And
from Montverde, he went to prep.
We decided to bring him back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All the other stuff it wasn't the right fit. So we just brought him back. He came back as a junior, and my son John wasn't going into his freshman year. So I had them both go to prep, and prep had lost the state championship 3 consecutive years.
Oh, wow.
Going into Richie's junior year and John's freshman year.
Okay.
And they played together, and they won the state championship that Richie's junior year, John's freshman year. And John was the 6th man on the team, had a really strong role. And Richie was a nice complement to an already existing good team.
Yep.
And so he won the national championship as a sophomore with Montverde. He won the state championship as a junior with my son John.
Okay.
And as a senior, Richie was the Connecticut State Player of the Year, New Haven Register, MSG. Mustafa Heron was coming out at the same time. By the way, Mustafa is one of my coaches. Mustafa's in Spain right now, so I forgot to mention him earlier. Mustafa's dad and I are good friends.
Okay.
And then, like they're on the campus of Fairfield University, and Fairfield really didn't have any interest in Rich. They, it could have been he wasn't ready or whatever, but he did a year at Cheshire.
Okay.
And, he had a great year as a post-grad. John wound up becoming like all-state his junior year. And then he transferred to Cheshire as well. Didn't play with Rich.
John and I were classmates at prep.
There you go.
I always remember John sitting behind me freshman year of theology, and me and him talking sports, and that was like one of the highlights. And then freshman year, as you mentioned, that junior year when Rich came over, we won the state championship at Mohegan Sun over West Hill. And it was that was like an amazing year. And then we lost John after junior year. I mean, selfishly, I was like, man, I wanted John to run it back, but obviously then he moved on too. And
yeah, he went to Cheshire. He wound up, he repeated his junior year, and then there was a coaching change at Cheshire. So we moved him as a boarding student to Williston.
Yep.
He had a great year. He got several offers, and he wound up going to Fairfield, ironically.
Okay.
And Richie wasn't recruited by Fairfield, but he was recruited by Tom Moore, who was the head coach at the time at Quinnipiac. And, Tom had a career change, let's call it. And Baker, he got fired,
Yep.
and Baker Dunleavy came in, and Baker's dad and I are friends. Baker was an acquaintance. Mike went to Nazareth. The dad lived 3 blocks from me in Brooklyn. So I knew the dad, and Baker's like, hey, we want to re-recruit Rich. And he was their first signee at Quinn. And it's kind of like we'll call it a neighborhood story, but, his first game as a free started for 3 years. He was all conference. I think at Quinnipiac, he might have scored about 1,200 points or something. But his first game at Fairfield against Fairfield, 40 on him.
Oh,
And, it wasn't, maybe that might have been his 3rd game as a freshman, and they didn't recruit him. But there was a coach.
I remember that.
Yeah, there was a coach at UMass, eventually at UMass, who was at Fairfield.
Was it Tyson?
Tyson Wheeler.
Yeah, Tyson. What a great player he was. Yeah.
Oh my God! Right. So Tyson, when Richie went in the portal, Tyson reached out and he's like, Mr. Kelly, he's like, I owe you an apology. I'm like, what? Yeah, that's the first thing he said to me. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, man, we were wrong. He said, we were wrong. And, but are we okay? And I'm like, yeah. So he's like, we want to recruit Rich. So and then Matt McCall, was there,
Yep.
and Matt's a good friend of ours now. So it all came together. And then when Matt was, filling out his roster, I was talking to him a little bit about Montverde and, what do you need? He's like, I need a big and I need a wing. And I'm like, well, my son's 6'8" and he can shoot it. And that being John, and he's at Fairfield, and he was hurt. He had a different career than Rich. He was hurt every year.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we can use it. So we went in, he worked out, and he offered him. And then he left, and Frank Martin came in. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm
Yeah.
rambling a little bit, but that's kind of the autobiography of my life and how basketball has evolved and how it affected my two kids and my daughter. And, that's kind of where it is now. And
Yep.
he's off to a good start. And he got the job at UConn because of Tom Moore. They reached after Richie played a year in Prague, Czechoslovakia, came home, was helping me with Dribble Drive, and he stays in touch with this guy and that guy. And Tom's like, hey, Rich, what are you doing? He's like, oh, yeah, we have a GA job, and it's unlikely you get the job. There's like 8, former UConn guys lined up for it. But you can throw your resume in, threw his resume in, and got the job.
That's awesome.
He's been there for 3 years.
Yeah. No
So
question
anyway.
for you. Just as far as like, I'm sure you get to give a lot of advice. Like, what are your thoughts on like the kids reclassing? Since you mentioned that, I think that's like an interesting thing because I have a son. He's 11 now, but he's in 7th grade. Probably should be in 6th or 5th grade. So I'm gonna at some point I have to figure that out. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, it is the professionalization of amateur sports, and it starts at the top. You've got NIL now. You've got high school kids getting NIL deals.
Yep.
And the scholarships are becoming few and far between because I think it's going to be maybe you're left with 50 top Division I schools, maybe 75, and there'll be a rotation of 10 in, 10 out, 10 in, 10 out from year to year. But there's no revenue behind a lot of the Division I and Division II schools, so I don't know how they're going to be able to sustain it. And I'm not sure that the moms and dads who are out there, they're looking to tip the scale a little bit in the favor of the child by reclassing and turning the clock back. Again, It goes back to like the Malcolm Gladwell, hockey example of the Canadian hockey players and their birth date being like January 1 versus December 31st. And they're a year older than the players that they're competing against. And the results are there. The quantitative results are there with their performance. So everybody seems to be reclassing and turning the clock back. And whether it's the right thing or not for a child can be debated. I always, at a certain point, say it's a personal decision. Yeah. I can't, you know what I mean? A mom and a dad have to be doing what's right for their child. They know their child best. But I'm not entirely certain that there's a payback because the numbers don't support it. The scholarships, the recruiting, I just don't know if it's there. Yeah. I think there's going to be diminishing numbers there.
And everybody's going to do it still.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like there's probably 20-year-old freshmen now.
Right.
At a lot of places, which, I mean, when I was 18, I was on the older side going into my freshman year. So, yeah.
I see.
Now we see the debate with the G League, right, Dennis? You got
oh, yeah.
high-level Division I programs like a Louisville recruiting G League players, and then there's the argument about, well, we're already taking European players who have professional experience too. And as Mike said, we got a lot of freshmen now coming in at 20 years old. These European kids, some of them are 21 years old, 22 years old coming in as freshmen, and they have 4 years of eligibility. Yeah. So it's an absolutely wild time. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I think a lot of people are upset about the G League thing, but
I do. I think there's a lot of legality involved in that, right? There's Supreme Court rulings on NIL, and in effect, again, it's the professionalization of college sports, right? The term amateur athlete is almost a hackneyed expression at this point, because these schools can't afford to lose the revenue that these teams are generating. So they're really professional athletes, and it's almost secondary that they get a degree, especially at the top, in the top 50.
Yeah.
And, so there's a lot of legality involved in it. And you talk about, 20-year-old freshmen, and I think the way it happens, right? You reclass in 1 year, you do a postgraduate, right? And then 20 years old, and, so it's the landscape of college basketball, it's professional basketball. The student athlete term is no longer, which was originally formed right back in 1923, to protect the schools from workman's compensation. It was a genius term. So if you look into that, if you guys hadn't, I'm sure you guys are aware of that, but, I think it was the president of Notre Dame came up with the term. He said, I'm not going to get sued if somebody gets killed or hurt or something like that. And he said, these guys are actually students. They're not employees.
Yeah.
And that stuck for like close to 100 years.
Yeah, and they still want to stick to it, which is interesting. So,
Yeah.
and as far as so with Rich at UConn, what's like in talking with him, what's their philosophy on recruiting? Because I think they've done an awesome job of having like a balanced roster as far as like high school guys, a couple of sprinkle in transfers, but not rely on that totally.
Yeah. Well, there's they're very much looking for players of character, right? B, highly intelligent players, and they have the network, they have the name, they have the brand.
Yep.
So it becomes a very strong value proposition, but things are changing a little bit there in a way because look at St. John's.
Yeah.
I mean, their budget for NIL compared to UConn, right? It's a business, yeah. So their recruiting is balanced. They get the right chemistry, they get the right, but they're losing a couple of players because the first thing a player will ask when they walk in is not, where's the library? What can I major in? It's like, what's the offer?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's a business transaction right up front, and, they've got the Bleed for Blue program, and I'm not sure of all the numbers and everything, but, I do know that, the money talks at this point. So I think that's maybe impacted them getting, the best of the best.
Okay.
So.
And I got my UConn jersey on here for this episode for Rich Kelly. Being part of that program, getting that national championship. He was there for the second one. Just unbelievable what they've been able to do. And, Mike and I are locked in on another, hopefully a great season for UConn. Before we wrap up, though, I want to get your thoughts in 2025. What's it like? Because you are a longtime Division I referee. Can you just talk about what that's like and dealing with problematic parents or players who may yell at you for certain calls? Like, how do you go about doing that in today's era where emotions can get the best of people?
Yeah, there's a social ethic or social, we'll call it etiquette, that seems to have been completely eroded. Years ago I'd watched like a lot of baseball, and I still watch baseball, but years ago I was like a compulsive addict, and I'd see Japanese baseball players. I'd be watching like a game, on some obscure channel, and a Japanese baseball player would get in the batter's box and bow to the umpire. There was like an etiquette there,
Ichiro was similar.
They just seem to have a different, comportation, there's an erosion of that. And if it goes back to like parents reclassing kids and, they're desperately looking for a return on an investment. And if someone or something is in the way, they're going to let you know it. Yeah. Right. And even in the social media now, everybody's crossing boundaries on what they say and how they say it. And there's almost like no traffic cop, monitoring this. It's like everybody's got a microphone. Everybody, can say whatever they want. And as a referee, you'll find that, and Pete, you and I may have, you and I talked a little bit about officiating before the podcast. There's a diminishing number of people who want to become refs because it takes a lot of training, and the training is, temperament management, right? And not just judgment on what you call and what you don't call, but it's the ability to manage temperaments and to manage emotions and manage and control a game. And it takes time to be able to do that, especially at the highest levels. And, I find that, people, they don't respect that boundary, and they forget that there's an 8-year-old kid on the court, and what you're saying and what you're doing is impacting your own child.
Yeah.
So it's highly damaging, and even coaches, and some of these AAU tournaments, there's shots fired, and you can Google that.
Yeah.
Some of these tournaments, you're like, what? And now you go to these high elite, and there's cops, and they have security services at the games. So, it can be antisocial, at a certain point. And a lot of it is self-governed. You gotta have good people, leaders, with good voices, and there's got to be governance.
It's definitely the toughest job going. I mean, I used to hate being like, when I first started coaching, having a ref at practice.
Sure.
Because you have the players are pissed at you, then the head coach gets pissed at you, and then the two older assistants that are trying to win because they want to show that they know what they're doing, they're pissed at you, so you can't win. So I can't even imagine refereeing a St. John's UConn game, what that must be like.
Oh yeah,
can't imagine.
Oh yeah,
because it's uncomfortable to watch as a coach. Like it's like no thanks. So God bless them.
Incredible. Well, listen, Dennis. We took enough of your time today. You were fantastic, and thanks again for opening up on everything, and of course what you're up to, what your family's up to, and the great things happening with Dribble Drive. So good luck with all of that, and thanks again for coming on today.
It's a pleasure, Mike, to meet you. And
Pete, it's great.
Thank you so much. I'm hopeful, and I'm sure our paths will cross again. And Pete, thank you very much. It's great to see you again as well.
Thanks so much. See you soon.
All the best. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys.